June 12, 2025, began as any other day in Ahmedabad, India. The city awoke to the gentle glow of sunrise with people heading out for work, students preparing for classes, and the usual hum of life filling the streets. No one could have imagined the tragedy that would soon unfold, shattering the calm of the morning. Everything changed in an instant. Tragedy struck just after takeoff from Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport, sending shockwaves through the city and beyond. Air India Flight 171, a Boeing 787, 8 Dreamliner bound for London, plunged into a densely populated neighborhood only moments after departure. The aircraft, carrying passengers from all walks of life, was on what should have been a routine international journey. The crash obliterated a medical college dining hall and nearby buildings, leaving devastation in its wake. The force of the impact reduced entire structures to rubble, trapping people beneath debris and sending plumes of smoke billowing into the sky. 241 of the 242 people on board perished in the disaster, their lives cut short in a matter of seconds. 19 more people on the ground lost their lives, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, adding to the heartbreak and sorrow. First responders raced through chaos, searching for survivors amid the smoldering ruins. Firefighters, police, and volunteers worked side by side, risking their own safety to pull victims from the wreckage and provide urgent medical care. At the airport, families waiting for news faced agonizing uncertainty as the scale of the disaster became clear. The terminal was filled with cries, prayers, and desperate hope for a miracle. The world watched in disbelief. How could a routine flight on a state-of-the-art jet end in such horror? News of the crash spread rapidly, dominating headlines and sparking an outpouring of grief and questions. The crash immediately raised urgent questions about aviation safety and what went wrong in the cockpit. Investigators rushed to the scene, determined to uncover the truth behind the catastrophe. As the smoke cleared, attention shifted from rescue to the daunting task of understanding the cause of India's deadliest air disaster in decades. The search for answers had only just begun. The loss reverberated across continents, touching families in India, the UK, and beyond. Candlelight vigils and memorials sprang up in cities around the world as communities mourned together. The city of Ahmedabad was left scarred, its mourning forever changed. The memory of that day would linger, a stark reminder of how quickly life can be upended by tragedy. Investigators quickly focused their attention on the crucial moments immediately after Flight 171 left the runway. Every detail mattered, and the team knew that the answers to what happened might be hidden in just a few seconds of cockpit activity. They meticulously reviewed flight data, voice recordings, and instrument readings, zeroing in on a brief but critical window of time right after takeoff. The preliminary report revealed a shocking fact. Both engine fuel cutoff switches had been moved to the off position, cutting off the fuel supply and starving the engines of power. This was not a minor error. It was a catastrophic action that left the aircraft vulnerable at the worst possible moment. The Dreamliner, a marvel of modern engineering designed for long-haul journeys, was suddenly transformed into a powerless glider. With both engines out, the aircraft could no longer climb or maintain altitude, leaving the crew and passengers in a perilous situation. In a desperate attempt to recover, the pilots quickly flipped the switches back on. One engine began to relight, but the process takes precious seconds. And by then the aircraft was already in serious trouble. The Dreamliner had lost too much speed and altitude to recover. The window for a safe recovery had closed, and the aircraft continued its rapid descent. Investigators found no evidence of fire, explosion, or mechanical failure that would have justified shutting down both engines. The engines themselves showed no signs of damage or malfunction. According to standard operating procedures, pilots are never instructed to cut fuel to both engines during takeoff. Such an action is strictly against protocol and would only be considered in the most extreme emergencies. So why were the switches moved? Was it a simple mistake, a technical malfunction, or was there something more complex at play in the cockpit that morning? The investigation now centers on the human factors, cockpit environment, and the sequence of events that led to this fatal action. Understanding the crew's mindset and the pressures they faced may be the key to unraveling this tragic mystery. The cockpit voice recorder, CVR, offered a haunting glimpse into Flight 171's final moments. It captured a brief, frantic exchange. One pilot asked, "Why was the fuel cut off?" The other denied doing it. This confusion suggests the shutdown wasn't a coordinated response to an emergency. Moments later, a desperate "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday" call was sent to air traffic control. the last transmission before impact. The CVR dialogue points to a cockpit breakdown, not a planned action. Experts say the conversation rules out a joint decision to shut down both engines. Did one pilot act alone? Was it a catastrophic misunderstanding? The CVR provides the what, but the why remains elusive. Investigators are now scrutinizing every word and sound for clues to the psychological and procedural breakdown. Both pilots of Flight 171 were highly experienced. Captain Sumit Sabharwal, 56, and First Officer Clive Kunder, 32, with nearly 19,000 flying hours between them. They were well-trained, respected, and certified to fly the Dreamliner. Shutting down an engine is a deliberate, guarded process. Accidental movement of the fuel switches is considered nearly impossible. Aviation experts agree, no trained pilot would intentionally cut fuel to both engines during takeoff without a dire emergency. The preliminary report doesn't reveal which pilot moved the switches or spoke each line. Both men died in the crash, taking the definitive answers with them. Their experience makes the incident even more baffling for the aviation community. The investigation continues to analyze every detail, but the truth may remain elusive. The mystery of Flight 171's demise is as troubling as it is profound. Amid the devastation, one miraculous story emerged. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, a 40-year-old British national, survived against all odds. In a scene of unimaginable destruction, he was the only passenger to make it out alive, a fact that stunned rescuers and investigators alike. Found dazed but alive, still clutching his boarding pass, Ramesh's survival defied all logic. Paramedics rushed to his side, wrapping him in a blanket as he tried to process the chaos around him. His presence at the crash site became a symbol of hope, amid overwhelming loss. Ramesh later recalled that the flight began like any other, with the usual hum of anticipation as the plane took off. But soon, he felt an unsettling sensation, as if the aircraft was stuck in the air, a moment that coincided with the sudden loss of engine power. For the passengers, confusion quickly turned to terror. The engines fell silent and a chilling quiet swept through the cabin. As the plane began its fatal descent, panic and fear gripped everyone on board, each person realizing the gravity of the situation. Among the victims was Ramesh's own brother, who had been traveling with him that day. The loss was deeply personal, turning Ramesh's survival into a bittersweet ordeal marked by grief and disbelief. His account adds a profoundly human dimension to the technical data collected by investigators. Ramesh described the eerie silence, the collective fear, and the desperate hope that flickered in the final moments before impact. Ramesh's survival is forever tinged with deep sorrow, a constant reminder of the randomness and cruelty of tragedy. He carries the weight of memory, knowing he was spared while so many others were not. His testimony, though fragmented by trauma and loss, offers vital context for investigators piecing together the final moments of the flight. Every detail he remembers helps shed light on what happened inside the cabin. Today, Ramesh stands as a living reminder of the 241 others who were not so fortunate, a solitary figure whose story honors the memory of those lost and underscores the fragile nature of survival. The investigation into Flight 171 is a global effort, led by India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, and joined by experts from Boeing, General Electric, and the U.S. The black boxes, the flight data recorder, and cockpit voice recorder were recovered, providing a second-by-second timeline of the disaster. The preliminary report, released within 30 days, outlined initial findings but stopped short of assigning blame. Investigators are now analyzing every piece of wreckage, maintenance record, and crew history. The process will take months, possibly a year or more. The goal to explain the crash and issue safety recommendations to prevent future tragedies. Every detail is under scrutiny, from technical systems to human factors. The world awaits answers that could reshape aviation safety. The crash has put India's booming aviation sector under intense scrutiny. As the country's worst air disaster in decades, it raises urgent questions about safety standards, pilot training, and regulatory oversight. India's rapid aviation growth brings pressure on infrastructure and personnel. Regulators are now re-examining training protocols and cockpit discipline, especially regarding critical actions like fuel cutoff. Crew resource management, effective communication, and decision-making will be a key focus. The tragedy is a stark reminder. Even with advanced technology, the human element is crucial. India's response will be watched worldwide, as lessons learned here could shape global aviation. The path forward demands transparency, reform, and a renewed commitment to safety. With the shock fading, the investigation enters its most critical phase. The central mystery, why were the fuel switches moved, remains unsolved. Investigators are analyzing cockpit audio, flight data, and crew histories to reconstruct the final moments. Forensic experts hope to identify which pilot acted and why. The inquiry will also review Air India's training, procedures, and operational culture for systemic issues. The final report will provide the definitive account and recommend changes to prevent future disasters. While nothing can undo the loss, these lessons are vital for aviation safety. The search for answers continues, driven by a commitment to ensure such a tragedy is never repeated.